in the heart of the city, lifting spirits, serving their aspirations, and bringing reality to their ideals.
A beacon made brighter by gathering together many sources of light, a series of small universities, individual colleges, each with its own special character and academic emphasis that combined guide our path forward.
Avoiding the usual barriers between graduate and undergraduate students, fostering interdisciplinary studies and tearing down departmental walls, championing connection and collaboration.
Imagine that, an edge that isn't.
We didn't begin as an undergraduate college, then develop professional schools, but started with graduate teaching and research in the beginning, laying the roof first.
So we could attract top scholars and researchers right from the start. And you know what? They came.
Among its purposes, the university champions the finest scholarship of the past and seeks through research the knowledge to guide our steps into the future.
Guided and inspired by our founders, we're a university founded on the edge, and we continue to thrive on the edge of tomorrow.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Annika Nelson. I'm the Craft Center Manager at UC San Diego, and absolutely delighted to be working today to help LaWana Richmond put on this amazing program today. I'm at a loss for words in some ways because this is really the finale of a 4-day event to preview the Craft Center at UC San Diego, and this is the part I've been waiting for. I think it's a really important program for us all to really dive into. And I'm so delighted to welcome you all here today. For those of you who don't know about the Craft Center at UC San Diego, we are a 11,000 square foot space dedicated to creativity. We want this to be a true intersection space, which is why I'm particularly excited to be collaborating with Dr. Richmond. We're going to be offering classes and workshops in ceramics, woodworking, jewelry, glass art, surfboard shaping, mixed media, culinary arts, and so much more. And I think what's so important about nurturing our creative side is it offers us an opportunity to have dialogue with ourselves and dialogue with others that we may not normally encounter. And I'm hoping that the Craft Center can be that space where those dialogues happen and those connections take root. And so most of us have been in many Zoom sessions before, but I'm just going to run through some basic housekeeping notes just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Mics are turned off as you join, but please feel free to share your video with us if you're comfortable. Absolutely, if you're not, don't worry about it. But I know for me as an instructor, it's wonderful to see people's reactions and to see their faces and know that we're not talking to black boxes with names on them. And we recommend using speaker view as we'll be spotlighting presenter during this class. The chat function will be turned on throughout. Of course, please be civil and kind. And feel free to raise your hand if your video's on, if you have questions. And then you're also able to ask questions in the chat feature, and we'll be monitoring that. So our presenters have a chance to be able to respond to that. And this session also will be recorded because we are making Craft Center history. Before I turn it over to our fabulous host, I just want you all to know how lucky we are to have Dr. LaWana Richmond putting together this program for us today. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of her background. Dr. LaWana Richmond can be referred to as a Black female Da Vinci or modern day Hatshepsut. At UC San Diego, she serves as the Organizational Development Manager for Transportation Services, where she creates frameworks, systems, and tools to support engagement, learning, and innovation. Co-founder and organizer of Afrofuturism Lounge and Afrofuturism Dream Tank, president of Democratic Women's Club of San Diego, treasurer for Detour Empowers, a nonprofit supporting teen girls' academic and economic success while focused on developing focused and naturally confident youth. She has been reading and watching science fiction and horror for more than 40 years. That's why she's so cool. And still hasn't had enough. Most recently, Lovecraft Country had her enthralled, terrified, and overjoyed all at the same time. She's a mother and a grandmother. Her favorite word in the dictionary, nebulous, because it describes something that can be anything. She says, I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am, from the Ubuntu people, resonates with her spirit and how she moves in the world. And with that, I turn it over to Dr. LaWana Richmond. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anika. I've been really looking forward to this, and I'm excited and nervous and thrilled and glad that some people actually felt like this was something they wanted to do on a Sunday afternoon. I would like to start by, so I believe, as an educator, that when you get information, you should always consider the source. So I really appreciate the introduction that Anika gave, but I'm just going to read a little short poem to you that I wrote when I was an undergraduate student many years ago. And I think some of it may have been aspirational, and some of it is, I believe, who I have been growing and continue to grow into. It's called Sister Fury. African warrior, mother, healer, queen, spiritually and culturally centered. I love my people and they love me too. This is whose world you have entered. Affectionate, dynamic, and kind with a balanced, directed, creative mind. Brilliant, loving, gentle, and wise. Come look into my big brown eyes, cute freckled nose, and pedicured toes. Each day, my capacity to love you grows. And so that's a little bit about who I am. So then you have context, because I think context is always an important thing. For some people, Afrofuturism is a new term. And so I wanted to give you a few definitions just so you had an idea like what the playground is, because hopefully we're going to have fun and we're going to play. So one definition, the earliest definition of Afrofuturism itself, and actually the genesis of the term, it was originated in 1994 by Mark Derry, a British journalist. And this is just an excerpt of the sentence. He said, speculative fiction that treats African-American themes and addresses African-American concerns in the context of 20th century technoculture and more generally, African-American signification that appropriates images of technology and a prosthetically enhanced future. So that's one definition. And when I get through this, you'll understand why I'm reading you three different definitions. We're going to do a little bit of triangulation. So Waitasha Womack wrote the book Afrofuturism, which was considered the seminal book on Afrofuturism at the time it was published. And she said, an intersection of imagination, technology, the future, and liberation, in which Afrofuturists redefine culture and notions of Blackness for today and the future by combining elements of science fiction, historical fiction, speculative fiction, fantasy, Afrocentricity, and magic realism with non-Western beliefs. So now, just to bring it back home to UCSD, Alondra Nelson, who some of you may know is an alum of UC San Diego and was recently appointed to the Biden cabinet for the sciences. She said when she was president of the Social Science Research Council, Afrofuturism describes visions of the future, including science, oh my goodness, oh boy, sorry y'all, including science, oh wow, technology and its cultures in the laboratory, in social theory, and in aesthetics through the experience and perspective of African diasporic communities. So those three definitions are kind of like the foundation from which everything else we're going to do today is kind of built. And now we'll talk a little bit about the Afrofuturism Dream Tank, how it was kind of born, and who worked on it. So with that, I'd like to start by introducing Qamar Bradford. Qamar is the co-founder of the Afrofuturism Lounge, and he is also a pretty smart guy. When I first started thinking about doing an Afrofuturism conference about, I guess it was about 4 years ago, I shared that with his dad. This is going to be rough. People keep calling me. I shared it with his dad, and he suggested that I talk to Qamar. And I've known Qamar since he was a high school student. I was at the time I was an undergraduate student, and I've watched him grow. Qamar has traveled to Japan and spent time there teaching English. He's worked for the Department of Rehabilitation, helping to combat ableism, and now he works for the federal government, for the Navy, I believe, with their EEO programming. And Qamar Bradford is the CEO of the Brokers Building Art Gallery Board. He is a men's talent coach, and he has his Master's of Science in, what's the C stand for, Qamar?
So CRC, Council on Rehabilitation Counseling.
Yes, and so now we're just gonna kind of share where we started. So Qamar, what is your inspiration when it comes to arts and speculative fiction and science and fantasy?
Well, that's a great question. I, of course, have to defer back to you, and especially growing up around the African-centered movement that I was raised with here in San Diego, with the community that we've been a part of. And one of the first things when I really was young and I got into the arts, and my dad would look at my drawings, he kind of asked, at one point he was wondering, he's like, why don't you draw any Black people? And it was really interesting because subliminally we draw what we see. And that really kicked off me starting to understand that I can draw and look at myself, and that's okay. Although it may not be shown to me in the general media, that's kind of where it really starts, is that Carl Jung-like individuation process of looking at yourself, looking at your role models. And I think it started there, just having the proper role models like yourself and Alyce and the Pan-African community here. So okay, but to really get into it, when you invited me for your first kind of kickoff of different events for promoting your Afrofuturism platform, it just resonated with me kind of as a comic book nerd. That it's a great way to kind of see the fun of thinking of the future and planning and envisioning the future. And I remember I got to a point, even I think, well, at Helix High School, my senior project was creating a comic book, and that fueled me into Japanese language studies and seeing how the Japanese art world worked when I did study abroad at Osaka University of Arts. And seeing other people in other parts of the world pursue their own futurism, I think really inspired me to collaborate.
Ooh, okay. So what are so there was this book. Then I remember you telling me about this book when you were in high school, and I was like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And I didn't actually get a copy of it and read it until maybe 20 years later. And I'm really glad that you kept bringing it up. Can you tell us what the book is and why it's so significant in relationship to this event today?
Sure. So one of the things I came across in just exploring different fiction was a really early writing, I think in the 1930s, by an author named George Schuyler, called Black Empire. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of contemporary look at the concept of Afrofuturism, but there's always early roots to everything once you kind of dig deep enough to find out there are other people thinking about things before they were even called the things we call them now, kind of like the proto-history. And if you look at the proto-history, back in the 1930s, when you had Pulp Fiction, you had things like, H.P. Lovecraft and his writings, you also had a very thriving Black publishing industry. And one of the newspapers called The Courier had an author who ran that company named George Schuyler, who wrote a book called Black Empire. And Black Empire looked at a sort of international movement of independence of Black people, sort of tongue-in-cheek, looking at the activities of Marcus Garvey. But it was really interesting because you sort of had this James Bond-like atmosphere, and you had different Pan-African people using sustainable technology and like electromagnetic forces to pursue their espionage, to go back to the African continent and kind of create their own nation, even echoing like, the history of places like Liberia. So that
Okay.
I think that's a pretty important one that's not on many people's list when they think of Afrofuturism.
Okay. Geez. I guess
So,
the next question is, so I'm looking at everything that you wrote, and there's a
Right.
lot
There's
here.
a lot.
Yeah, but we want to stick to our time frame. But so I
Right.
guess one thing would be, can you share a little bit about your experience at the very first Dream Tank?
The very first Dream Tank was a great undertaking. And I think when we were working on it, a lot of my mind went back to some of the historical think tanks that I saw around me growing up. One of the biggest ones that happened in the 90s was the Black think tank, which produced an agenda of different points for the Pan-African world to pursue, and ideas of reparations and what the shape and the nature of things like that would be, or how do we connect the diaspora. And I think when we were working on it, my idea was to incorporate that into our process. And I liked your scientific approach, and your analytical approach. And you had an amazing amount of network of people who were interested in talking about those things. We were able to bring those points cohesively. But ultimately, it kind of gave to me the conclusion that, in a way, I think probably what could state it best, like the idea that I developed, is that the trajectory for machinery of Black and Pan-African think tanks, even looking at organizations like NSBE or the Association of Black Psychologists, and those are fueled by art, fantasy, and speculative fiction. And the results include inventions like things that we may take for granted, like peanut butter or heart surgery, or inoculation. But it's the creative genius that comes out of Afrofuturism can be surprising, because it could even reach into the creation of social media companies, and platforms, video games, and creative properties, and more. So that's kind of the feeling that I had when we were working on it, and premiering it in the building downtown during Comic-Con.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you being here. I'm looking at where we are. I want to introduce our first, thank you. Thank you for helping me get everything started. And thank you for being here. I want to introduce our next guest, and it's Maharani Peace. She's an Afrocentric abstract found and recyclable artist, culinarian, creator, and community organizer, especially in EDI issues. And I have to say, I wish Maharani was already part of my network before I started working on this, but I have to give credit to Anika for bringing us together. And she kept telling me, this is going to be great. And then we got a chance to talk, and I realized that she was absolutely the right person to do a little art a mini art demo just for people who think they aren't artists, because I really want this to be engaging and people to participate, even if you just do it quietly in your own home. So Maharani, are you ready to get started?
Yes. Hi, I'm Maharani Peace. My my core belief is that everybody is an artist and it's our first language, and we've been told that we're not. And so it's my charge to make sure that everybody forgets that and realizes that they are. So today, I'm going to intro a little art project that anybody can do. You can't make any mistakes. That's what's so freeing and beautiful about it. Um, Anybody that knows me in my life knows that I am a planner, and I really organize, and I think probably way too much about everything. And in art, I find myself completely free. And there's something very lovely about not making a mistake, not being able to make a mistake. So hopefully you all have your materials, which is white paper, markers. You need 3 or 4 colors and a black marker, and something to write on, and some scrap paper. And we're going to be doing abstract marker art. It's super simple. The only real rules, if you call them that, is that at the end there shouldn't be any white left on your page, and that wherever 2 colors meet will be outlined in black eventually. And this, my personal rule is I like to not have anybody comment on my art until I'm done, because I'm abstract. I never actually know what I'm doing. I can never draw myself or somebody else if they ask me to, but I can definitely do their essence. But if you say what you see before I'm finished, I'm pushed into that direction, subconsciously or consciously. So the fun part about this art is if you don't know what you're making, you can't make a mistake. And what's supposed to be there will be there in the end. So we're going to be doing stuff that looks like this. Well, this is my version anyway. Yours will look completely different. You're going to take your 3 or 4 colors, and what starts out looking like a bunch of random shapes ends up looking like a cohesive piece in the end because of the tying in the black, which will outline everything. So I have a couple starter pieces to show you. I just start drawing random shapes. They could be anything. They don't have to touch. They could touch if you like. That's fine. Also, I use regular markers. I grab my little pack of Crayola markers. I like the broad markers because they help you fill in the space faster. But if you have thin markers, that's fine too. If you do have a broad tip marker, one of the tricks of the trade is to use the side of the marker instead of the tip, because it'll help you slide and fill in those spaces faster. Once you start doing that, you can start adding black to, like I said, wherever 2 colors meet. And the smaller you make your pieces, like you see there's some tiny little dots here, just remember that everything's going to be outlined in black. So that will be a little bit more laborious, but that's okay. You can do whatever you want. Again, no mistakes. This is what frees you. It's interesting to see what comes up out of the art that you create. You find that you pull colors, and it's that you're pulling colors for a reason that maybe you didn't realize until everything's done. You find that you see things in the art that you've made when you're finished that speak to whatever you're going through, whatever you're thinking about, which is why I say, don't tell me what you see. Let me free myself and get out there and see what I need to get out of my system and what ends up on the page. And the results are really interesting. Everybody sees something different. from every angle. It's very cathartic. It's also something I really like to do when nobody else is around or when I'm just trying to decompress, watch some TV, pull out my markers. I can take this anywhere I want and free myself in any space that I'm at. This kind of thing is so important. We tell ourselves that if we can't draw a dog the way a real dog looks, then we're not an artist. But whatever you see the dog to look like is art. So many things that appeal to me don't appeal to others, and vice versa. Art is subjective. I work with lots of students from very young to very old, and I tell them my opinion about what you create actually doesn't matter. I'm just here to give you the freedom to do it. I'm going to give you the permission that may have been taken away when you were younger, when they said, that doesn't look like you, or that doesn't look like what that's supposed to look like. Forget it. It looks like what you think it looks like, and that's okay. And even if you don't like it, there's somebody that will. I never throw away any of my art. It's okay to not like what you've created. So it might touch somebody else. So I've started a piece that I'm working on right now. I hope that you all are starting on your pieces. I picked out a few colors and I'll keep adding to this. I just drew some shapes all over the page. I usually like to start with the lighter color first, just because sometimes, depending on the markers that you're using, they will bleed in. The darker colors will bleed into the lighter colors, or vice versa, onto the tip of the marker if the darker color, if the lighter color is touching a darker color. So I like to start with drawing the lighter colors first and then moving up gradually. Once I've done that a few times, I get to a stage like this where I decide, okay, I've got enough stuff on the page. I'm going to start outlining in black. And if I so chose to, I would fill the rest of it in black. But what I usually end up doing is seeing where I'd like to add more shapes and more colors, giving a full effect all over the page. So I can add little bits. And like I said earlier, if you do smaller dots or shapes, that's fine. Just remember that you're going to have to outline them. So I have some examples. You see, these are some really small dots that I had to go around in black, but they work just fine. And then I also have these larger shapes and some fill-ins where there's nothing. Sometimes my canvas, my papers are completely full in black, with little bits of color, and other times it's mostly color and literally just a little bit of the outline. So you have a lot of choices there. Let me see. I'm pulling out different examples to give you different color combination options. I am a colorist, so colors really, really matter to me about their harmony. But again, there's no mistakes in this art. So pick what is calling to you. If you feel that the colors don't go this time, there's always next time. Keep going. Don't finish, or don't stop working on the piece. You might not finish it right now. I've been working on this piece for months just because I'm inspired at some points and then completely over it at other points. So I'll keep coming back until it's finished. And I have finished some pieces, like I said, I haven't ended up loving, but that doesn't stop me from creating. And I've had many compliments on those things. So I really encourage people to just keep pushing, keep going, explore color combinations, shapes, patterns. All of these things are super important. And again, really tell something about yourself. If you take the time to sit back, think about, well, why did I color it this way? what are these shapes saying? What am I going through? What's going on around me? Introspective thought while you're doing your art is a really beautiful thing. So, LaWana, do you have any questions or anything you'd like to?
I don't have any questions, and I'm not seeing any indication from the audience that they have questions. So I think we're going to go forward thinking that you did such an excellent job, that everyone understands like what they, understands the liberty that they have to be creative. And hopefully they will give themselves permission.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So now we're at this part where I was going to introduce you all to one of my favorite local Afrofuturists, Max Moses, who's done a lot of art around San Diego and around the UC San Diego campus. He isn't going to be able to be with us, but he did send me a video that I'll show later. But one of the reasons I was going to have him come up now is we were talking about vision, and when people think about vision, how we make sure they don't confuse vision with personal desires. And so a personal desire might be, Maharani was talking about markers. I guess I'm kind of marker bougie because these are acrylographs. I desired them and I have them. But that's personal. It doesn't benefit or uplift our community in any way. Whereas a vision hopefully is on a grander scale, and it's about making the world better for everybody. Are we on the same page about that? Now, the next piece we're going into, and I'm going to bring up BB Alyce Smith Cooper after we show this first video, but I just have to intro them because I had no idea what I was about to watch. And when she was working on them, she sent all of us the information and said, you got to see these videos. And there are no words that really can express the power. I felt moved with each one. We're going to see 3 before the end of this, but let's go into the first one. And it was commissioned by the La Jolla Playhouse. And it features Reverend Alyce Smith Cooper, who some of us know as the Brown Fairy Godmother. But she's so much more. And then also Shammy D, who's a DJ, producer, artist, educator, and he isn't going to be with us today, but the two of them together created this lovely piece that shows what can happen when you have intergenerational collaboration where people are free to be. So I guess I will ask Liz to start the video.
Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God above, please look down and see my people through. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God above, please look down and see my people through.
If there be any mercy, Lord, see my people through. Mother, Father, Creator of all, I'm howling in rage at the undeniable injustices continuing with contempt for you. In this country, this experiment in consciousness, no recognition of brotherhood, common decency cast aside, compassion consumed by the lies and greed of darkness, refusing to admit defeat. Mother, Father, Creator of all, You will not be denied or continually disrespected. Victory lives in your word remembered. We, your people, built this bitch by our stolen blood, sweat, tears, souls shackled, scattered, but spirit not extinguished. We, the people of light, arise! We march, we arm. We aim to blot out ignorant envy of who we are and what we stand for. Spirit, ignited creativity. We will not miss our shot into eternity. We live to erase the seed of racism. Blind to our common creation. We are the agency of abolition. We declare reparations, restoration, renewal on this land with its native people and those who come seeking to grab freedom. It ain't free. Freedom ain't free in this infant democracy. We still longing, grafting, fighting for it. Still rubbing the sleep from our eyes, remembering the nightmare of the imposters trying to steal it. Mother, Father, creators of all, we belong to you.
So I talked a little bit about, oh yeah, I unmuted myself, sorry, about Phoebe Alyce. I didn't mention that she's a poet and a published author and a minister. And honestly, when I am feeling a little unbalanced, she's one of the people that I call. And so I'd like to introduce you to her so she can talk to you a little bit about the production.
I think I'm unmuted, but I don't know if I'm on, if you can see me.
I'm waiting, so we need to spotlight you. I think I can do that.
I think I've
got we got you.
All right, wonderful. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day and all of the other things that we could be celebrating at this particular moment, the Lunar New Year, the birth date of Frederick Douglass, Black History Month, any number of things that we could be celebrating. But I'm grateful to be celebrating with you here at this time. Most particularly, I don't know everyone who is presenting, but I have been graced with the opportunity of getting to know Dr. Furiali, I call her Furiali, Dr. LaWana Richmond, and the Honorable Qamar Bradford. I call him honorable simply because we have no idea what this young man is going to end up being and bringing into existence, but we know it's going to be honorable. So I can always say that. And I recognize that I consider myself to be an elder with a transformational thrust, which only means that I've always been odd. I've always been a little weird. I've always thought a little differently. And I had to keep it hidden because it was just too painful to expose myself in all of the situations that I found myself in. As you say, I'm a registered nurse. You can only be so forward thinking and speaking in that arena. I'm an ordained minister, and certainly there are protocols to be considered and acknowledged in that arena. I'm a parent, I'm a great grandparent. So there are lots of ways that I have found myself constrained. But in my creative expression, just as the marvelous young artist who came before me, I loved her face. Her art was amazing. Her face was art, and I loved it. But speaking in that particular reign of freedom, that particular realm of freedom, that's where I've been able to have the wiggle room to say the things that I wanted to say and take a role if I felt that it was appropriate as an actress to be able to express my creativity in that way. So these amazing videos that have been commissioned by the La Jolla Playhouse and produced by them, and currently are running on their platform, but are free and open to all of us, have come about because of my sense of there not being the intersectionality that we've been talking about. The colors blurred, like on the previous artist's work, but we smeared black lines over the blurring of the colors so that we could see more clearly what we wanted to see. I believe that these videos kind of remove some of the dark lines to see the possibilities of what can possibly, what has been, obviously. That video tells us and shows us what has been and what is currently being experienced, because we do draw and speak and see what we hear and see. But we can envision beyond that, because that is what intuition and imagination does for us. So these 3 videos came about as a result of my sense that there was not enough intergenerational conversation or intersectionality, since everybody likes that word, but wasn't enough coming together, as far as I could see, for exchanging ideas and conversations that touched us in the places where creativity could actually be accessed. So as a result of a conversation that I had with the Leadership Council of the La Jolla Playhouse, Christopher Ashley and Jacole Kitchen helped us to bring this project together. So Shami D and I, obviously different generations, obviously, well, maybe not so obvious. We look alike in lots of ways. Physically, we do resemble each other. People ask me, is that somebody in your family? No, we had never actually met before. We'd been in the same rooms before, but what we can come to understand is that there is so much more that is common to us than that is not. In between cultures, in between races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, there's still more of us that is common than is uncommon. And for all of us, the need for a world in which we can live and move and have our absolute being in the image of that has created us, in compassion and love and harmony and unity, that is something that's common to everyone. So I hope that you see that in the course of the music videos, and that you will also understand that this is an offering. This is an offering to our community. It's an offering to the world, to be able to respond to that first piece, the sermon. It's been offered the basic information, the basic music, digital music, and the basic words that were spoken are being offered to the community for people to respond to in any creative way that they can experience. So appreciative of the young lady who went before me, because her creative expression could actually be incorporated in some way. She chose to respond to the music or the words or both of the sermon that just preceded our conversation. So it's an offering to the community. The Playhouse is willing to receive whatever the offerings are. We've already had some. We've had one amazing video of dance in response to the words and the music. There are other people who are producing sculptures and other things of creative value that speak to the emotion, speak to the intellect, speak to the positive movement that is encouraged as a result of what we tried to do, because we felt like old folks and young folks need to be able to talk together. It has always been so, and anytime we have that separation, I think we have a real issue of communal living, and the passing on of wisdom. It's a very difficult thing to do if you're not in communication with one another. And I'm not talking about the elders being the only ones who give wisdom by any means. Obviously, it's an intergenerational exchange. It's a reciprocal activity. So, insofar as Afrofuturism is concerned, to be a Black person in this stage of cultural and physical evolution is to be an Afrofuturist. If we recognize where our history has come from, what it's evolved from, and where we hope for it to transform from here going forward, there is the African genius that must be considered, because it is at the basis and is a thread through everything that we experience if you really want to get to the science of it and do the research. So, Dr. LaWana Richmond, thank you so very much for including us in this process. For everyone that's involved, my heart is wide open, filled with love, and I'm absolutely thrilled to see us moving together and talking to one another. Blessings to you.
So BB Alyce, I think you have an inkling of just how much I love and appreciate you. So thank you for being here. And we have, we actually shared in the chat the link to the challenge for anyone who wants to react to that video and do, you know, kind of like all these challenges we see all over TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So instead of doing a silhouette challenge, do the sermon challenge, and let's start some conversations about some things that can help us individually make a difference in our society. You know, no cap on the silhouette challenge. I gotta admit, I've enjoyed some of the videos myself. But, you know, I want to just say that we have built into this interaction and time for reflection, because my favorite thing for people to do is think, because it's not legal, it's free. I encourage you to engage in some of the art, and I'm gonna play a little bit of music and give you a couple of minutes just to reflect on everything that's happened in the past few minutes. And we're going to come back, have some reaction. And I didn't tell you at the very beginning, but the chat is open. So feel free to also engage and interact in the chat, because this is not, I don't like doing things that are talking heads type things. I like, yes, I see heads nodding. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm alone. All right. So I'm going to turn on some music. We're going to show a slide, and then we'll go from there. All right.
Great.
Hi, we're Shani and Alyce Smith-Cooper, creators behind Spit and Truth to Power, and we invite you to be a part of this project. What do we mean?
The foundation of this project explores the intergenerational connectivity between artists. We would love for you to be part of this project. This artistic relay, where you extend the piece and add your flavor to what we've started. Here's what we're doing. We're sharing with you the elements of this piece, the music and the text, so you can listen to the music, read the text, and get inspired to do your own creative thing.
Hit that link to get more information on how to access the materials and what to do once you're done. We're excited to see what you create. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and thanks for light leaping with us. Peace.
Peace, easy.
Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God above, please look down and see my people through. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God above,
If there be any mercy, Lord, see my people through. Mother, Father, Creator of all, I'm howling in rage at the undeniable injustices continuing with contempt for you. In this country, this experiment in consciousness, no recognition of brotherhood, common decency cast aside, compassion consumed by the lies and greed of darkness, refusing to admit defeat. Mother, Father, Creator of all, you will not be denied or continually disrespected. Victory lives in your word remembered. We, your people, built this bitch by our stolen blood, sweat, tears, souls shackled, scattered, but spirit not extinguished. We, your people of light, arise! We march, we arm. We aim to blot out ignorant envy of who we are and what we stand for. Spirit, ignited creativity. We will not miss our shot into eternity. We live to erase the seed of racism. Blind to our common creation. We are the agency of abolition. We declare reparations, restoration, renewal on this land with its native people and those who come seeking to grab freedom. It ain't free. Freedom ain't free in this infant democracy. We still longing, crafting, fighting for it. Still rubbing the sleep from our eyes, remembering the nightmare of the imposters trying to steal it. Mother, Father, creators of all, we belong to you.
The term Afrofuturism first appeared in an essay titled Black to the Future by Mark Deary in 1994. But its roots go back to a fateful night in the late 1930s in Huntsville, Alabama. On that peculiar evening, a beam of light shot down from the sky and lifted Herman Sonny Blunt into an alien spacecraft. On a voyage
sustainable change around the world. Recently, Adria and her business partner, Milan Rivera, founded Communities for Global.
I froze.
I think it's Dr. LaWana.
Yes.
Oh, okay. There she is.
You're back.
Were you guys okay? Good.
Awesome. Were you done? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can go on. I mean,
no. You
I think
froze.
there's so much.
You froze, and so I just wanted to have us all take a minute to breathe together, and just be in this space and time together is so incredible. I think all those that have gone before us in this atmosphere of creativity, and it's so important and essential in the time that we're in to remember that we are at the core of who we are. We are creative beings. And so I thank Alyce and Miss Hall. If you're still there, I don't know. I call her Miss Hall because she was also my son's teacher and counselor. So it's just an honor to see all these faces of people that I haven't seen in a long time or wanted to meet, and here you all are. So thank you for being here. So I was invited, I'm an honor to be invited by LaWana to come and speak to you about something that I find near and dear to my heart is community collaboration. And so when I was seeking this knowledge, I was asking myself, why are we so discombobulated? What is wrong? Why do we have, south of the eight? Like, why does that even exist as a title of a community and we all know what that means when people say south of the eight. And so I wanted to find a way forward to get rid of what sorts us, what places us in these different categories. And so it's called urban alchemy restoration. And I didn't get here on my own. It was, again, by asking questions and seeking people that had already mastered this skill set. So urban alchemy restoration is asked the question, her name is Mindy Fullove, sorry. And Dr. Mindy said, what is it that divides our neighborhood and what's causing public health? Could it be things that are causing public health problems? So she was studying how our cities in communities like south of the 8 or South Central Los Angeles had been sorted, and those issues like the AIDS crisis and other things were causing these huge public health crises. And then she asked, what if there was a new approach to planning and designing that could tackle both the built environment and a collective way of being the beginning at the being at the same time. So she was really looking to find out, how can I take this public health crisis, and we all know that we are currently in one, and how do I help communities understand that we cause this big, huge divide in our communities? And so next slide. And this is what that looks like. So you have health disparities, resources aren't being shared equally, culture, that's all these different cultures, like in San Diego and Hillcrest, there are 46 different languages spoken. So that causes a divide. And then education and class and racism. And in Mindy's work, she talks about it's a sorted city and it's just all broken apart and there's huge divide and no one's talking and communicating together. So part of the work that LaWana is asking us to do today is dream forward to 2081. And what would 2081 look like as Afrofuturists? What would we want to see in that city? And how would we get there? So I'm hoping today to provide you with some foundational tools. Next slide, they're called the 9 elements of urban alchemy restoration. And they're broken up into 3 categories. And the first one is align. And then the next one is create, and that's where we're all at today, and connect. So I'm gonna get my notes out here because I can't remember everything. And what I love about this way forward is it gives us some elements to set a foundation to move forward, remembering the past, remembering how we got there, and sort out all these complexities so that we can begin to have transparent and aligned communication and resources moving forward. So the first element, there's 9 of them, like I said, in a line, is keep the whole city in mind. So when you're talking about creating your dreams and visioning forward, and you start, using your artwork to think about 2081, as LaWana's asked us to do, what does that look like? Think about creating this strong foundation. So you're going to keep, if you're doing community planning, for example, that's what part of my work is like. I help communities get organized. And so what does that look like? I'm thinking about not just me and in my town. I live near San Diego State. So I'm not just thinking about San Diego State. I'm thinking about how does the work or whatever I'm doing going to impact the future foundation for my area, as well as the county, as well as the nation moving forward. It's something that people aren't usually thinking about, me and my neighbors. Well, now I'm asking you to think and, keep the whole city in mind, keep your whole household in mind when you're thinking about planning forward. And then the next element is find out what you're for. Sometimes we're so busy and caught up, and raise your hand if you can think this way and with me, is so busy we're caught up in, I got to do it this way, I got to do it that way, and you never slow down to really like form the mission. And so once I understood my mission and what I was about and what I was for, that allowed me to help other people kind of start to clarify their visions. So when you decide to think about, what does my community stand for? What's the vision? What common grounds do we find ourselves in? And also thinking about, how do I include everyone in this sorted out city? So that broken divide that you guys all saw, that's the sorted out city. So in the art of science and urbanism and restoration, we want to start to figure out, like, how can I restore that so that we can all come together? So we're going to find out what we're for. That's the second element. And then the third one is make your mark. So you're going to make a mark. So LaWana's decided, I'm going to make my mark in Afrofuturism. She's thought about it. She's collected a dream team so we can start thinking about it together. And what does that mean? So you're going to start to explain the differences, and like, what does that mean for all of us? And, how does that shift the movement forward? What are we going to place our mark? Like, we're going to say we stand for, creativity in this art space. And so how do we begin to use that to build a bridge forward? So that's a line. And it's hard to see you guys because I'm looking at my notes at the same time, but that is a line. And then we can ask questions later if we have time for that, LaWana. And then the next element is, there's 4 elements in create. So that's the space we're in now. So in create, the first element is unpuzzle the fractured space. What does that look like? Well, there's this fractured space between art worlds even. How this artist perceives art in this atmosphere and how they think it should be done. And then there's other artists that's like, we're gonna do it on the wall. And they're like, wow, I can remember when graffiti art first hit, people were like, is that art? Of course it was art. And now, thanks to some great artists like Moses, we can see that that's art. And like our first speaker, she said, it's your own expression. I can't tell you how to do it. It's how you're going to express who you are to the world in this creative space. So that element, unpuzzle the fractured spaces, has to do with, what separates us, and who and what does, and how do we separate ourselves? And after we figure that puzzle out and start to come together, the next element is unslum all neighborhoods. Does your neighborhood feel like a community? Or does your household and your block, does it feel like a community? If so, why? If not, why not? And what would it take us all to make it feel like one? So in 2081, what do our neighborhoods look like? And what do our communities look like? What do our households look like? And then the next element is make meaningful places. Name a public place in your neighborhood where people get together. And so we can think about this space that the USC's, they've made a space for us. All us creatives, we have a space where we can go and we can learn and we can come together and create together. So I love that. You've created a meaningful space. And then the next one is strengthen the region. So one of the things that this creative space is going to allow us to do is we're going to be able to come together, especially through Afrofuturism. We're going to actually be able to come together, and that's going to strengthen the region because we all live in different parts of the city or the county. We're all going to be able to collaborate. Zoom, technology has actually made it easier for us to come to a meeting. I can remember I was part of an organization called it was a new chamber, the Chamber of Purpose. And they wanted to begin to have a business/social chamber where we could all come together. Well, the problem was that the meetings were all the way out in La Jolla, and I don't drive out to La Jolla very often. And I recommended, hey, if we're really going to create this way forward, why don't we start having meetings in different parts of the city? So that's another way where you can think about like how are we going to strengthen the region. It can't just be about you come here. No, we also need to figure out how to get into the other spaces so that we can make it easier for everybody. Now Zoom has kind of alleviated that barrier. And then the last piece is connect. So the eighth element is show solidarity for all life. How do we define solidarity? How do we view solidarity within our city, within our community, within our businesses? And what are the ways in which a city shows solidarity? And this is really interesting because we're in a time where this is probably one of the most essential pieces to this work that we all want to do, is showing solidarity for all life. And I'm so proud to be a part of a community that understands that and is working towards that. And so as we vision for 2081, what does that vision look like? I just cannot imagine in 2081 that we're having the same conversation that Black Lives Matter. I just cannot imagine that. So in my future world, that doesn't exist. We're all cohesive. We're showing solidarity for all life, whether it be my dog, my cat, my people, my neighbor next door, in all life. And the last thing is, this is the most important one of them all, is celebrate your accomplishments. One of the things that I love to do, I love a good party. Like LaWana knows, we all know, like I love a good party. Before we were closed in, I was always figuring out like, how can we just all celebrate? And so one of the things that's really, really important, especially in this time, is to take the time to connect through celebration. Whether you do it virtually or whether you do it through small gatherings, but I really, really employ us all to think about connecting through celebration. And that's how all the elements work: align, create, connect. And there's a lot more. There's a lot of tools that go along with this. There's some lessons and some community collaborations that we can all do to make this work and function. But these are the 9 elements, and I just think it's a beautiful way for us all to get together. LaWana?
Wow, thank you. So before we go any further, are there any questions? There are a couple of things we're gonna, right after this, we're gonna look at the last 2 videos from the La Jolla Playhouse Project. Adria, thank you, not only for what you just did in terms of breaking down the elements and giving us a framework for envisioning the future, but also for every single thing you have done and are doing behind the scenes to contribute to the success of this event.
You're welcome. That's my thumbs up, by the way. That's like my thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you. Questions about urban alchemy restoration, and it can be used through other things. I use this. We have a company called Coalitions for Global Sustainability, so we're using that to rebuild communities and build back better. So if you have any questions, and I can send you the information and the book. That's how I found it. I literally was just typing in urban alchemy one day, LaWana, and I was like, oh, look, what is this book? And she literally answered all the questions I had been asking.
Right, so speaking of like, if you have questions and you want to connect with our presenters, all the presenters that are still on the line, please put your contact information in the chat so that if people want to connect with you, they can. I think, my hope is always that any event where I bring people together, that they make connections so that they can continue to grow and pollinate the world with just beautiful things. And energy and all that good stuff. So when Bibi Alyce spoke earlier, she referenced 2 videos. I'm not And so we'd like to go into those videos so that you can see them, and then you get to see the continuity. We're not going to break between the two videos. And then afterwards, we'll have a reaction moment, because I really want to hear your voices. I've been talking a lot, and people who know me know that like my voice is actually tired from talking so much. And I guess we're going to go into the videos.
The wicked man shall fall when all the righteous man stand tall. Make them know them can't run and hide.
So, my beloveds, that's the way it was in those days.
The imposters were so sure they had the people of light surrounded in a shroud of darkness, sewn together by hatred, fears, and lies.
They were so drunk on pride and arrogance, they became bloated. They forged ahead, swimming in the blood of innocence and feasting on lynched flesh.
They planned to manipulate us.
We, the rainbow melanin peoples, the vision poets. They thought we were convinced, blinded, deafened to the cried out anguished last breaths, calling for mother, seeking compassions which were unavailable. They thought we would turn on each other, shedding each other's blood. But then, lightning flashed, the lion roared.
Lord, this is a prayer for my people. Please watch over the families whose children have passed. Place peace in their hearts. You say, invite the people. Open arms. Inside the temple, I'll find you. But I'm inside the temple. It's dark. My arms are outstretched to feel for walls, and I grasp space, looking for you to put my faith in. And I look.
The wicked man shall fall when all the righteous man stand tall. Make them know them can't run and hide.
So, my beloveds, that's the way it was in those days.
The imposters were so sure they had the people of light surrounded in a shroud of darkness, sewn together by hatred, fears, and lies.
They were so drunk on pride and arrogance, they became bloated. They forged ahead, swimming in the blood of innocence and feasting on lynched flesh.
They planned to manipulate us.
We, the rainbow melanin peoples, the vision poets. They thought we were convinced, blinded, deafened to the cried out anguished last breaths, calling for mother, seeking compassions which were unavailable. They thought we would turn on each other, shedding each other's blood. But then, lightning flashed, the lion roared.
Our eyes popped wide, our mouths open, declaring truce of brotherhood.
Unity, victory in the light network, silence to the tongues of liars. We pulled down the stronghold of the isms, called forth the drowsy religions to wake up, shout.
Lead with tools forged of love. We crafted community through services to each other.
We grew our food from blessed seeds, healed ourselves from the fruits, leaves, trees, vines, roots we grew. singeing songs. The divine light dissolved darkness, destroying hidden plots and schemes. We shifted the agencies towards true abolition, reparations. We chose to be the agencies to usher in transformation. We,
The family of all, choosing to live as one.
we forged this new garden. Same mother and same father, but a new garden.
Goodbye.
You know, I've been counting on you my whole life.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. LaWana Richmond's cousin. Thank you for inviting me. This was awesome in so many ways and in so many levels, in so many depths and dimensions and fears. But I love the diversity and I love the authenticity of all of the presenters. I love the fact that they were being their authentic selves. And I think it's so important as we move forward. All of us won't get to 2081, but I still have a dream that those that come after me will have a better world than that which those that have gone before me have had, those that are currently here, and those that will be a part of the world yet to come. And I know that we all have various perspectives, but it's really important, not just for our culture, but for all cultures, that we learn and grow from one another. We have gotten so divided, and we have so much animosity against one another, even internally within our own cultural. There's so much hate and resentment and bitterness. And so however we can move forward and strive together to overcome that, so that the littles that we all have under us don't assume that. There's been so many postings in the last few months about, little kids 2 and 3, how they just authentically love one another. They come together, they embrace each other. They don't yet know that they should not like each other. That's something that I strongly believe it's not nature, it's nurtured. We teach one another how to not care and how to not love and how to not appreciate our diversity. There's so much about my culture yet I have to learn, and I want to learn about other cultures so that we can all be healthy together. So I hope that we can continue to have more of these forums. And I'll just say that for my cousin, that they become intercultural and they expand across the globe, and that we have persons from overseas that will begin to participate as well. Love you.
Love you too. Yeah, so Carmen, just full disclosure, she's my cousin that I used to follow around like a little duck when I was a kid. Whatever she said was just, I was in awe, because she was just the most amazing person I had ever met. And like, she was a full-on, big person. I was a little person. I didn't know nothing. Thank you. So we're gonna go into another video, and maybe some more of you will be willing to share. And and I have to say, Carmen isn't just Carmen. Carmen is retired Army, was it lieutenant, second lieutenant, first lieutenant?
Major.
Okay, major. So I don't know all that stuff, but and not only that, but then after she retired, she went back to school, and now she is the Reverend Carmen. And so I'm still following her. Now, this next video, Max Moses couldn't be with us, but he did make a video where he talked to us a little bit about community art, because the things that we do to make the world better, some of them are about policy, some of them are about building things, investing in things, but some of them are about the art that we put into the universe, because art can change the atmosphere. It can change the conversation. So without further ado, we'll show the video of Max Moses, and he's creating here on campus.
Art is all. Art is all. Art is all. Art is all.
I told myself I wasn't ready. I told myself life is hard. I told myself I couldn't do it. I told myself a lot of dumbass shit. And then I met graffiti, this pure act of freedom, this visual mass movement based on simply writing your name, fueled by a rebellion and driven by the natural human desire to be free, free from all restrictions that have been inflicted upon us, free to create our own vision with our own language and our own style, wild style.
Art is all realities together. Art is all realities together. Art is all realities together. Art is all realities together.
The whole urban culture, I think a lot of people are really appreciating it now for what it is a true art form. It's not vandalism. It's something that people work at and love, and you have to treat it with respect.
I manifested that. We're up here at UCSD painting a Max Moses mural. But it was a lot of hard work and dedicated time and effort on my part, but I manifested that, brought that to fruition.
Well, first of all, the fact that I worked at UCSD blew my mind because that's a college, and I mean, people go to school there, they're gonna see that, you know, throughout their whole experience of college and sit there and eat and just look at it. So being able to be a part of something that big that I know others are gonna see, it's just a really crazy, surreal feeling. I don't know how to express it, really.
Spending like the 4 years that I was there, I kind of got to know the community and I got to know, you know, the culture that existed there, which is completely different. And it was like a huge culture shock. So seeing that myself, it felt familiar and it felt really, you know, it felt like I could relate.
This is right down my alley. I still am just stoked that I'm getting to be a part of it. You only see in urban neighborhoods, like low income areas, but they beautify it. They don't want just to see scribbling on the wall. They want to see a big, beautiful piece.
It was actually really awesome being able to collaborate with different artists. I've only worked with two of the artists, but a new artist I got to work with, and I got to see their different techniques and how they do, you know, their different styles.
It's classic Max Moses. They have a piece that's gonna be in uniform or kind of series-like with the rest of his work around the world, let alone San Diego, so.
Art is all realities. Art is all realities together.
I don't see anything. 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 I don't see anything.
Amongst all the noise and chaos that makes New York City such a great place, yeah, that's where I was born. To me, there's nothing more magical than riding the subways. Back in the 70s, the subways were covered with colorful names like Dondi, Scene, Phase 2, T-Kid, Days, and Scheme. Amongst the citizens of New York and the world at large, these teenagers were criminal. But to me, they were my heroes.
All right. So yeah, this is you know, all of this, everything that we've done, everything we've talked about, everything that I have shown you up until this moment. I see a hand. Let me see here if I can figure out who's got their hand up. Michelle, did you want to say something? Michelle Krug?
Yeah, I heard you. I was just trying to unmute. It's a really tiny icon. I just loved that video. That's what I wanted to say. It just so reinforces what works for one person doesn't work for another, and everybody has to find their outlet, their way. And sadly, many of us never find that. I loved that video. That's all.
All right, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I do want to say, you know, as we're thinking about the future and we're thinking about visions of the future, one of the things that I really I think it's important for us to understand. Sometimes people are afraid when we say things like Black empowerment or freedom or liberation, because they see it as at the expense of everyone else's empowerment, freedom, and liberation. And the reality is that is only the vision of people who are afraid of it. If you look around this room, if you even look at the videos that we've been looking at, that is not the message. And it hasn't been anyone's message. It's really been about diversity and inclusion and equity and fairness, and, you know, being able to know that my grandson, who every time I turn off my camera, that's who you see, when he is walking to school, I can feel like he is just as safe as anyone else's son. Qamar, I see your hand. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I can let you finish.
Well, I'm being fluid because I was feeling a depth or a lack of input and engagement. So now that it has started and the pump has been primed, I just wanted to continue because you guys have heard from me enough.
Well, okay. Well, I guess my idea was chiming off of the comment, the idea of diversity, and one of the things that really helped me kind of get out of my Pan-African community and like the whole sort of all Black environment, which a lot of people are kind of stuck in their own cultural insulated environment, is realizing that human beings were all connected at a scientific genetic level. And I had to rectify growing up, like getting into more Japanese culture and Asian American culture and exploring that. I had to question them. Am I allowed to look at these things? Am I allowed to handle these languages? Am I allowed to explore these things? And am I appropriating it? And one of the things that really helped me expand my view and myself of who I was looking at that process at a scientific level. And I was lucky enough that books by Jared Diamond called Guns, Germs, and Steel were published, and that I want to say, I think Henry Spencer, I can't remember the name of the author who published The Journey of Man, where the scientists documented all DNA on the earth and how it related back directly to the Khoisan people of the Kalahari Desert. And then it kind of helped me realize we're all in an evolutionary journey as human beings. And as long as we give credit to where we're getting our ideas and where, the original authors for certain things are coming from, that we have the right to explore and to develop ourselves and to write our own story, as long as we have our citations right,
Okay. So I see Adria has her hand up, and then after Adria, I'm gonna switch to Alyce because I think she just came back in the room. All right. So Adria.
No, I just kind of wanted to tie together. So I'm a connector. I'm seeing all these interdisciplinary, like all these thoughts that are connected. And really the thought is, if, when King said, I have a dream, we're the children of the dream. That's how I see myself. I see myself as that child who said, hey, one day this color thing that, man created racism isn't going to exist. It's something, a construct. So I love, Carmen, when you were saying, this is I'm team human. I don't know any other way to be. It just doesn't make sense in my head that there's this separation. So I see it as, we're the children of the dream. That's why there are so many people on this call right now from different cultures and different backgrounds and different colors of skin. And it's not because we all decided that creativity obviously is a gateway to heal humanity at a deeper level. And that's how I feel about it. So thank you guys for sharing. Carmen, I love when you were talking about that. Thank you.
All right, so I think Alyce is back in the room. And I'm wondering if you would turn your camera back on, baby Alyce, and come rejoin the conversation for a moment.
Delighted to do so.
Oh, thank you. It is so beautiful. I just wanted to acknowledge the power of those videos. While you were out of the room, we showed all of the videos. And we showed the other two videos, and I just wanted I wanted everyone to hear any words that you wanted to do just to close out the video series, and also remind people to do the challenge. And then also I think we all need to give you a hand, because I think seeing it in its totality, people got a fuller understanding of the significance of the work.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. To God be the glory. For whatever our collective or individual beliefs might be, there is a creator, and we are the creation. And from what I can understand, we are highly venerated, highly held in terms of thought and consideration as this cosmos goes. We're not the only ones here, but we're looked at and look to for the compulsions of transformation, that we've got better things to do, further places to go, greater visions to embrace and grow into and continue to transform forward, which means that as an elder and my stage of growth and development, I'm looking to you. Just as I stand on the shoulders of others that have come before me, I feel the weight of you standing on the shoulders that I present so willingly. Not that they're so marvelous, only that they've got a sound foundation. And for those of you who know me, you have to know that I'm gonna say hallelujah. I'm gonna say praise God. And I don't care how you serve or how you pray or how you bow or don't or believe or don't. The truth is always going to be the truth. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to agree with you. But what I do have to agree with is the creator and the creative spirit within you that I support wholeheartedly. Just don't do nothing that you ain't supposed to do. You know what you're not supposed to be doing. That's why I came out from behind the pulpit. I don't need to tell you what you ain't supposed to do. You already know. But I can try to live a life to the best of my ability that will show you that it pays to serve the truth. And it pays to look toward the future so that there you leave at least some indications as to where the young people can put their feet so they don't absolutely have to walk on the water. Not that they can't, but it gets to be scary. Who wants to be scared all the time? Nobody. That's why I'm thrusting my heart into the atmosphere and through your absolute use. For the love that comes through me is available to you and didn't start with me and won't end with you. Keep it flowing. Keep it moving. Keep your eyes fixed on the truth. This stuff that is being presented to us is not the truth. And the mighty hand of that has created us will take care of it all. I'm convinced of it. That's why I know in my heart of hearts that we are creating a new garden with blessed non-Monsanto seeds, with food that we can eat. Well, you know,
Say that again. Say it again.
I recognize the scientific neighborhood in which I'm speaking, but we have choices to make because we've got children coming behind us who need strong minds and strong bodies. And yes, they will be exposed to the artificial intelligence, but they're not artificial and they don't have to be. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for viewing. Take the challenge. Spit it out the way you spit it out. Draw it out, dance it out, sing it out, shout it out, however you do it. Shout forth freedom for our generations because we owe them that. Stony the road that has been trod and bitter the chastening rod that has been felt by our ancestors. We owe them that. To stand before them in integrity, in love, in truth, to look forward to a new time when they can raise their children in times when they're able to look back and say, yeah, baby, that's the way it used to be. But this is the way it is today because of the love that has permeated us all. So to God be the glory. Love, light, peace, joy, everything that makes you smile. Keep it going.
All right, true. Say that.
Keep it
Say
going.
that.
So
Woo!
Thank you. God
Thank
bless
you,
you.
Mother. Thank you.
So I'm just so delighted to see these the younger people that I have worked with over the years. I saw Annika's name, but then it finally dawned on me, that's the Annika that I worked with 20 years ago at Children's Hospital. So, it's
Thank you so much, Alyce. Oh, you rocked my world way back then and rocking it again. I'm like, oh, seriously. You are the best Valentine I could ever ask for.
Well, by golly, there you go. And I give it to all of you with all my love.
Vincent has a question.
Yeah, so I'm trying to bring him up now. I was trying to give give BB Alyce the air. Vince, can you unmute and ask your question?
What's up, Vince?
It's good to see you, by the way.
Oh yeah, that was good to see you. Sorry.
Truly, it's been a very long time since people have seen me, and that's been intentional, by the way. Good afternoon to everybody. You do not know my name. My name is Vincent Devon Eichel. I've been on a journey for about 11 years working on a concept of mine in regards to activating people to start thinking about the future and their place in it, regardless of their ethnicity. I created something called Us, which a lot of people learned about back in 2010, honestly, and I started working that idea fervently here in San Diego since 2015. Over the 3-course year, I was invited into a very exclusive networking circle, brotherhood specifically, that actually helped Akon acquire a lot of his financial assistance to do a lot of things that he's been doing in Africa that people have seen. So for me, everything that I've heard, as seldom as it has been extremely powerful, to hear. I need to hopefully see the entire recording of the day to really dive in deeply and understand exactly what took place here today. But for me, working with students, creative and entrepreneurs, amplifying creativity to connect and unify humanity like I have been, willing to risk whatever it takes to make people wake up and truly start thinking about their futures, whether they're African American or an Afro-Euro like myself. I was born in Holland. For me, I want people to start thinking not just about racism and sexism and fighting that, but really focusing upon classism and colorism, because those are the global issues that affect Afrofuturism from really being deeply rooted into people, in my personal opinion. So I personally want to know, what do you guys think about that? Because that's something that I've learned over the last decade of meeting a lot of different creatives here in San Diego, seeing the brilliance within them, getting mentorship from people like Cheryl Morrow, Milan Rivera, even yourself, Adria, to a certain degree. For me, I know what kind of energy exists currently in the space of the world. I have many friends from my high school here I'm close right next to Rancho Santa Fe, currently in Rancho Penasquitos. And I went to the high school where James Holmes, the Aurora, Colorado shooter, went to. I experienced a different kind of energy there, a different kind of prejudice there, which led me on my entire journey that I've been on since I was 17 up until this point. So for me, I've heard many people come together in collectives, and I'm not trying to come in here and change the mood of anything. It's a wonderful day. It's Agape Day, for the entire world today. So I want to make sure that conversations like this, for somebody like me with the kind of onus and, I guess, energy that's coming my way due to what I've been working on for such a long time, I can take the truth that I'm hearing, as seldom as it has been so far, and really activate that in an appropriate manner so that it's taken advantage of in the appropriate manner. Because it's been time for a very long time. The whole world has no excuse now to not realize that we need to stop focusing upon whether I'm black, white, blue, green, or gray, and start focusing on being a humane being instead of a human being, or pretending to be something that we're not, like we always seem to do. That's the kind of stuff that had me just remove myself completely from this environment for almost 2 years, so I could really heal my spirit up again to go for another decade, because I got my whole entire network that I needed. And I didn't use any of my family's relationships to get it, by the way. Just to give people some context, my cousin's name is Salam Remy. He was producing Amy Winehouse's complete album when she passed away. One of his personal friends. He's produced for Nas as well. He's been my idol since I was 17. I never met him on purpose so I didn't lose my fervor on my journey. I could have met him a very long time ago. That's how important what I'm trying to do has been for me. And I've done a lot of things to get to the point where I'm at, where I can be in the same networking circle as somebody as Akon and around those kind of people that gave him
$1 billion credit line and a lot of things to get important things done for people in his homeland of Africa, in the motherland. But obviously in the divided states, in the divided kingdom, there needs to be a lot of correction as well, so that things actually change this time. That's my main concern. So I would love to hear your guys' perspective on somebody or some group of people who are thinking like Afrofuturists or social Afropreneurs, because that's what I claim myself to be. I want to hear your opinion on people stop focusing upon racism, sexism, and start focusing on classism and colorism as the true things that we need to combat and fight to make sure that Afrofuturism actually takes place in the future, so that in 2081, you know, life can really be better for people that wear our hue. That's my concern.
So Vincent, I'm glad you brought that up. And I'll start by making a reference to some things in pop culture. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to see Judas and the Black Messiah. But one of the things that happens in that film is we get to see a common story played out. During the civil rights movement, leaders were typically assassinated not because they were organizing Black people, but because they had come to a place where they realized that racism was not the holy grail in terms of how we get a just society, and bringing people together to cross color lines, class lines, and to understand that we are all being oppressed in different ways. And typically, that is the moment when the decision was made to assassinate whoever that proposed or perceived Messiah was. And let's, not be, let's be real. The assassinations, there were the ones that were clear where there was a bullet involved, but there were many assassinations that were character assassinations. But ultimately, the whole thing was, it's not that we need to figure out that we have to all come together. We just have to all come together. Because the reality is, every time we rally behind an individual to do that work and make that happen, what we are actually doing is putting that individual at risk.
Right.
At some point, the work that I do focuses on leaderless groups. At some point, we have to, and that's why I said, put your contact information in the chat, because we can't wait for anybody. As long as we're waiting, my grandmother used to say, "Wait broke the wagon." And I don't know if it was weight because the load was too heavy, or if it was weight because the wagon was waiting for something to happen and then it got broken. But the key is, we have, if you look around this space today, we've got people who cross every line that you can think of. And I'm so grateful to have a diverse group of people come together to talk about this topic in this time. I think, I agree, there are many battles being fought on many fronts. I would posit that many of those battles are merely distractions. And that the reason I ask people to look forward is that sometimes we're so busy looking back or looking around at where we are that we are distracted from doing the building that we need to do to get to a better place. I see Qamar has his hand up. Qamar, did you want to say something?
So one of the key areas that's really important in how we approach activism or advocacy is the term intersectionality. And there's a kind of like a thought that I posted recently that said intersectionality means one's single demographic doesn't have a monopoly on adversity. Every group has in-group responsibility towards equity and justice. In working with people with disabilities, you find that it's usually studied in 3 areas of cognitive, psychiatric, and physical. And that's actually one of the most underlying issues that we have. Someone feels a certain way and we don't know how to feel that same way as they do. Someone thinks a certain way and we don't know how to think the same way they do. Someone just functions differently and we don't know how to accept that. And that crosses all areas of sex, gender, race, and each demographic sort of attribute that we have works that way, and that's what intersectionality addresses. Usually when I'm working on anything with equal employment opportunity, or if I'm talking about diversity and inclusion, I have a chart that breaks down that not only is there race, and color and gender and sex, there's, of course, there's also class, there's also faith, there's also disability. And we always have to remember that within our own groups, as well as outside our groups, everyone is valid. So making things ergonomic, making things comprehensible, making things accessible, making things universal or inclusive, and our ideas or our standards of beauty, in our access of emotionality, or even, gender and sexual expression, that has to be considered, because that one thing normal for us is very different for someone else coming from a different perspective, class, religious group, or any other lifestyle.
Thank you, Qamar. I really appreciate that. I see Sheldon has his hand up. Sheldon, can you unmute?
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. So I just first want to thank Dr. LaWana Richmond for having this Dream Tank. I spoke to her in the past, and I told her how important these things are, because it's where people get together and to, as she said, to dream and to think about solutions. And I think that's a very important thing to do. A lot of times we have blinders on and we only see like what we can or can't do. But when we're exposed to new ideas, which is why diversity, inclusion, and representation are so important, right? Because when you can see, like, I never thought I could see myself doing that. But when you see someone doing that, then you realize, oh, wait, I can do that. Well, now maybe I can do even more than that. So I think it's really important to have these types of venues, and collaboration is key. I put my information in the chat. It's important for people to, follow each other, stay in touch, check out what other people are doing, because that's how you get that synergy, and you realize that, like, oh yeah, we can work together. We can, we may not be able to do everything together, but hey, you know what? There's this one thing, and I know a guy because I saw him on Dr. LaWana's Dream Tank, and let's contact them and see if they will come in and do it. So again, just thank you for doing that, doing this.
Okay, so you can't go away yet.
Oh.
People have noticed your background, and so I was wondering if you could tell them a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I do a show with Dr. LaWana Richmond and Mugnito and Paco. It's called Afronauts. This is our 6th season, and our 3rd episode, we will be celebrating Black History Month, which is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. And we have the wonderful illustrator Afua Richardson, which she was mentioned in Lovecraft Country. She's the artist that actually drew the Orthea, is it Orthea Jones?
Orinthia Jones.
Orinthia Jones
we
comic.
Can't mess it up. That's my favorite superhero.
Yeah, she actually drew the comic, and I would imagine that at some point there'll probably be an actual comic that comes out about her. But yeah, she drew that. She drew A World of Wakanda. And then just to have parody and show the intersectionality, as Qamar was saying, we have Dr. Anthony Browder coming on, the only African American to have their own dig site in ancient, not ancient Egypt, but in Egypt, right? Where he's done over 20 trips to Egypt, and they're restoring a tomb there. He's also, I don't know if you've ever read or heard of the Browder Files, and he's done Egypt on the Potomac, linking the connections to how DC is laid out to how ancient Egypt is laid out. So yeah, we're gonna have them on tomorrow, and if you would like to join us on the Zoom call, please check out our page on Afronauts on Facebook. And I'll put a link in the chat, and you can hear more of Dr. LaWana Richmond's wisdom there tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. So does anyone else have anything? So all right, two things. One, does anyone else have anything else they want to say? Because I'm not seeing any hands. And then, so please put your hands up. Does anybody want to share their art that they created or any notes? So I don't think Susan knew I was going to do this, but this is what she created. And Susan Panado is the person who was the president of the Democratic Women's Club of San Diego County right before me. In fact, because of how she set everything up, I was willing to step into the role and grateful for her continued mentorship and support. And so this is what she came up with. Does anyone else want to share their art? Oh, come on. So I started off with a big piece of paper. And so I didn't fill up the paper because I guess I was busy talking. But this is what I came up with. Let's see here. I see Kara sharing hers. I see Michelle is sharing hers. I see Adria is sharing hers. I see Ashley. Ashley is actually one of my friends who is an artist. So I'm loving seeing what she did. Let's see who else is sharing. All right. So that is that's important to me because if you haven't figured it out yet, I really don't like talking heads programming. As much as I like to teach and share information, I just feel like when we engage in it together, I learn from you, you learn from me, we walk away with everybody better off for it. We are right at 3 p.m. and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And, I want to say thank you to all of the presenters, as well as the people who worked behind the scenes. I want to thank the Arthur C. Clarke Center for the Human Imagination. I want to thank the UC San Diego Black Staff Association. I want to thank all of you because, believe it or not, sometimes people have events and nobody shows up and they have this delightful menu of things to share. So I appreciate all of you being willing to engage, and I promise you that my love will continue to grow.
And thank you, LaWana. That was just an amazing, what a way to open the craft center. Seriously, this is just, I hope we do this again. This was just the best way to tie off, 4 days of celebration of creativity and intersectionality and interconnection and lots of love and lots of good ideas. And so I'm so grateful for you for putting this event together. And I'm just speechless. This is just so cool.
Well, I appreciate you guys being willing to let me create and play, because sometimes when I come with my abstractions, I think it scares people sometimes because, I say, let's open everything up and let people, show up as they are. And, all the things that people are afraid of when you open up, we were all together here.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I know a lot of the people in the audience, my only thing is that I wish I would have had the opportunity to hear more from them, because I know a lot of really smart people, and I know that if we all put our heads together, we can do some incredible things. So should we play some music, or I'll do the King Britt playlist, and we'll just stay here until people don't want to be here anymore.
Dr. LaWana, are you able to change the permissions so people can download the chat?
I have been looking around for somewhere to put it, and I haven't found it. But what we can do is we can send an email after. So with the recording saves, we get the recording files. We'll also get the chat file.
Oh, cool.
And so we can send it to people after the fact. Okay. And the people who came straight into the Zoom will get their email addresses from the usage file. Okay. And then the people who registered will get their information from registration. And, I think it would be good just to send them, the chat as well as resource guide and contacts for all the presenters so that people can continue to build.
Okay. Absolutely. No, thank
So,
you for that.
all right, so does anybody else have any questions or any ideas? Because, I love ideas. Oh,
I
I
got
wanted
an idea. Let's do this again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do it
Yeah,
again,
I
LaWana.
think we can make that happen. I want to share something funny with everyone because I didn't mention it, but you see the book cover on my picture? That's an aspirational image. It's for the book that I keep writing and I've never finished. So when I finish it, that'll be the cover.
Nice.
So I'm gonna
Gotta put it out there. You have to put the manifestation in place. So
Yeah, it's all about planning, right?
Yeah, planning and also making the time to write. I mean, so I've got to slow down and learn how to have some space between the different things I execute. So tomorrow we've got the Afronaut show. Tomorrow night is the Democratic Women's Club meeting, and then Friday the UC San Diego Black Staff Association. I'm hosting the annual President's Day Forum. And I think there's some other stuff, but I'm not going to look at my calendar because when I look at it all in its totality, sometimes it scares me. Michelle, did you want to say something?
I'll say something else. So you have the book. You just need to take the time to draw it out of the ether and put pen to paper. So the book is written. You just haven't drawn it out yet.
Exactly. I mean, I know I have the framework, I have the outline. I just have to actually take the time to put the flesh on the bones. And just to give you guys a synopsis, it's basically about how I discovered that I am an Afrofuturist, because evidently I've been manifesting and planning and envisioning and creating for a really long time, and I didn't realize that that's what it was. And then once I realized it, I had to accept it. Michelle, I see your hand still. Do you want to say something? If you unmute, I'll switch to you as soon as I see the unmute button. Well, hello, Mr. King. It's nice to see your face in the place. Thank you for bringing us all together so that we could get this ball rolling.
This has been so inspiring. Thank you, Dr. LaWana. Thank you all. Thank you for those that shared today. It's been wonderful. I've just been blown away for the last 2 hours, which has been truly inspiring. I really needed to hear from you all today, and really needed the good message and the love that you're sharing. So thank you all.
All right. Let's see. I don't see anybody else unmuting. Is everybody okay with us ending the meeting? Oh, I see a hand. Oh, no, I see hearts. I keep seeing Michelle's hand and thinking that she wants to say something.
It was hard to unmute. I just wanted to ask the time for the Afronaut show tomorrow.
Sheldon, what time are we on tomorrow?
11 a.m.
Thank you.
Pacific Standard Time. Yes, 11 a.m.
Jupiter. His alien captors prompted him with a mission to transport black people away from the violence and racism of planet Earth. Sunny became Sun Ra, who worked on the other side of time. His songs were both far out and yet somehow familiar, a reaction to the trauma of black life in the United States. He believed no place on Earth was safe for black people, and who could argue otherwise? His spacecraft was his ark. His band was known as his orchestra. On his cosmic voyage came many earthly stops. A stint in jail during World War II for being a conscientious objector. The cover of Rolling Stone in 1969. Later that year, a concert in Egypt, and a visit to the pyramids, where Africans first looked to the stars. And in 1978, the orchestra performed on Saturday Night Live. Nowhere was the message clearer than in his 1973 film, Space is the Place, a movie that found Sun Ra recruiting Oakland's black citizens to join his space program. There are less than a dozen black characters in the entire Star Trek franchise, one in the original Star Wars trilogy and none at all in the Jetsons. It was imperative for Sun Ra and his to fly their own spaceship. Ever since the orchestra knocked at the door of the cosmos, black music